I just love it out here. Something about the weather. Space weather. Space does have weather. Who am I talking to? I'm supposed to be doing something, right? Oh. Hello. Look, I know what you're thinking. Kyle, you in a dang spaceship? You expect us to believe you're in a fusion-powered spaceship even when the stars aren't moving behind you? Come on, dum-dum. That's just parallax, and I'm not moving very fast and the stars are very far away. It doesn't matter. I was on a routine mission, of course, to survey our little sector of the galaxy, and it's like looking at the Earth from up here. Gives you a kind of perspective, a kind of a big picture look on what's important, what matters, and just how meaningless and potentially dangerous social media can be. Welcome to Office Hours. Whew, man, I get in fast, huh? Yeah, so, my deorbit process is absolutely crazy. Hello, and welcome to the Office Hours podcast live. I'm your host, Kyle Hill. I'm the good old professor here. I'm opening up my doors like any good professor would to explain to you that thermodynamics problem number 3 that you just couldn't understand. I'm also going to be talking about many different science-y topics of the week, and I'll be taking all of your questions. Now, of course, if you want to, it's a pretty awesome lab and facility. If you want to join the facility, if you want to have this kind of interaction with us all day, every day, almost 1,200 nerds right now are on the Patreon where you can get access to the private Discord. They have their own game nights. They give me episode ideas. Merch is incoming very soon. If you want to do that, my security team will put it in the chat. Also, there's a security team in the chat, so if you're spamming or saying anything weird, you're banned, because that's just how I roll. And as amazing nerd Heinrich Bjork has already shown, super chats are enabled for this live stream. I will do my absolute very best to get to as many of them as possible, but I cannot promise I will get to all of them. So before we begin, I want to outline where we will be heading and treading intellectually watersly today. We'll be talking about COVID-19, of course, because we kind of have to, and how it relates to social media. I found a new study, a survey, that was very interesting to look at where people actually get their information when they have conspiratorial beliefs about COVID-19 and the pandemic. We'll also be talking about Millie Boys. Now, if this millipede was white, it would be Milli Vanilli, but it's not. It's the opposite of that, and it probably wrote its own songs. But we will be talking about how millipedes walk, because I found a video that I'm going to show you that is maybe the most beautiful form of animal locomotion that I've ever seen, and I wanted to know how they walk. So I looked it up, and then you're going to know. I also did some research into comets, but I'm not really psyched about it, to be perfectly honest, so I might not even talk about that. It's a pretty picture, though. We'll also be talking about one of your nice comments from the last episode of the facility about The Last of Us, and we'll be engaging in peer review to see if it holds up to scrutiny. Where am I from? And finally, we'll be talking about a surprise, another Magic the Gathering study. Not really an official study, but something that ties into everything that we've talked about, or I've talked about on various channels so far, about Magic the Gathering, computer science, being Turing complete, and how basically you can break the game. So right off the bat, we have a number of soup chatties. Hans with the 5 says, I'm glad you did an episode on Mass Effect. You are awesome, and good old COVID. Well, I don't agree with the last part, but Mass Effect is certainly one of the best sci-fi game series of all time, if not pretty up there. We have another 5 from Tigler80. Says, hey Kyle, love the show. Hey, thank you. Any facility merch coming up, like t-shirts for non-members? Yes. Right next to me, right there, I have notepads and mugs, and right there I have tank tops, t-shirts, graphic tees. I just need to take a couple of nice photos so it looks presentable, and then we'll launch it, and you do not have to be a member. So before we get too deep into all of the comments, let's go to our first topic. COVID-19. You say what I mean. How does that song go? Demonetized. Anyway, so I'm sure you're all sick of COVID-19 talk at the moment, but in my country, where I'm located, the United States, it's obviously still an ongoing problem, in that we have not flattened the curve. It looks like we are about to spike into a second wave, especially amid all the social unrest and protests and people gathering. I mean, two very different events, unfortunately, kind of circling back on each other. You know, even tear gas helps spread the pathogen. So, like, you can see how these things are not great for each other. But with that in mind, I want to keep hammering home this issue because I think it's important to recognize where we get our information, what information is trustworthy, and maybe how we can talk to people in the face of dangerous misinformation. So what I'm talking about today is specifically a new survey that came out that was talking about a link. It was in the United Kingdom. This is live. Where it was looking at the people who had conspiratorial beliefs and then about COVID-19 specifically, and then where they got their information from. And spoiler alert, I bet you know exactly where they got their information from, but let's go through it anyway. So somewhat disturbingly, on a base level, the survey found that somewhere between, for the more crazy theories, let's just say, I don't think these people are crazy, but the more crazy theories, it's somewhere between 15 and 30% of respondents had some conspiratorial views. So you're talking about almost a third of people thinking that 5G radiation could be linked to this, that governments are deliberately suppressing numbers, or that the one that's most believed by about 30% of people is that COVID-19 was created in a lab and released. And you call me the supervillain. Now, there's no evidence that happened. This is a conspiratorial belief, an idea that you cling to despite the lack of evidence. So when the survey started, so I did a master's degree in this kind of survey taking, science communication stuff. And what you want to do is isolate variables, where the person is from, how old they are, their sex, their gender, all that stuff, their politics. And then you control for certain variables and you see how the variables you're interested in, how the variables you're interested in vary with those variables that are independent. So what they were looking at was social media use. And as you can see right here, just a couple of highlights from this. In particular, quoting now, people who believe in these conspiracy theories are more likely to get a fair amount or a great deal of their information about the virus from Facebook and YouTube. 60% of those who believe that 5G radiation is linked to COVID-19 get their information from YouTube, compared with 14% who think that's false. So you can see a huge disparity here, where it seemed the effect size of what we're seeing, from 60% to 14%, 46% difference, almost a 50% difference. You can see that it looks like that social media, everything else being equal, is a big driver of the effect. It's not causation, but it is definitely correlated. You'd have to do a bunch of other things to prove causation. But across the study, it found that social media use, Facebook and YouTube in particular, were linked the most with conspiratorial beliefs about COVID-19, and these beliefs also skewed conservative. Now, this was in the UK, so it doesn't mean the same thing as Republican and Democrat and all the other parties, but it does skew conservative, and it skews towards Facebook. Now, I bring this up because on the last episode, I tweeted out a clip of myself saying this, where, I've been very vocal in that I think social media probably was a mistake, at least in the way it's been implemented. So, of course, there are amazing things that social media can do in terms of bringing people together, or making sure people are safe after a disaster, or organizing really niche groups so you can, really indulge in your favorite thing that you didn't know anyone else did. But on the whole, it's allowed misinformation and misguided views and beliefs to take root and take hold, and it's easier to share and like these things. It takes less cognitive overhead. It's harder to think deeply about something than it is to think quick and dirty about something. Daniel Kahneman, the very famous psychologist, called this System 1 and System 2 processing. A lot of conspiratorial belief is System 1. You have quick judgment, heuristic, like, oh, that's the government, that sounds bad. Whereas System 2 is more systematic. Who's saying this? Where's the evidence coming from? social media in particular amplifies the more controversial and opinion-based beliefs. And then that spreads like wildfire. In fact, misinformation speeds so quickly across the internet, I don't think that wildfire is a good term anymore. It's like electron fire. It's like a rippling of electrons out to just mess with people's minds. And we need to be aware of this. And that's why I bring this study up, is that if we can locate, the different locus or loci of where people are getting their misinformation, maybe that is a way to start targeting it. To its credit, YouTube, and why this video will probably be demonetized and then remonetized, is because they have algorithms and people actually looking at content with pandemic-related topics, and they are evaluating it to see if it has misinformation in it. Good for them. Facebook repeatedly has taken the position that they're just a distributor. They're a platform. They're not a source of media. I mean, they have some precedent to say something like that, but when you can alter the fabric of society amongst 2 billion people with a system that, I know I said this before, but it incentivizes you to be interactive in an unproductive way, I think you have a real problem. So we're seeing that now with COVID-19. And while I remember it, the other part of this study that was important to look at was that the people who are more likely to believe conspiracy theories about COVID-19 and more likely to use social media were also more likely to break lockdown requirements. Where that means gathering with people, not wearing a mask, basically, and not social distancing, not being safe. So all these things kind of go hand in hand, or however many things that I said. And we see this with conspiratorial style thinking, where people who think JFK was assassinated by the CIA are also more likely to believe that 9/11 was an inside job or that Bigfoot exists. All this kind of thinking wraps you up in a bubble of distrust and misinformation and misguided icons, and it leaves you in this headspace where you don't know up from down, and you want up to be down and left to be right, but it's not anymore, and suddenly you find yourself in this really isolated, siloed section of the internet where you feel like you shouldn't be, and you're saying these weird things, and why would it be that only 5 other people have this crazy ass idea? Go to the chat. I need some invisible water. Oh. Dorian Russell with the 20 says, "Hey Kyle, love the channel. Thank you so much. I'm actually pretty proud of how it's going so far. Always wanted to ask, what would it take to restart a planet's core if it was dying? So in a planet such as Earth, I could answer this better. Yeah, I need a better view. See, Dorian, the issue is when you're looking down at a planet like Earth, what you want to see, if you have life on it, is some sort of magnetosphere. And that magnetosphere, sphere of Magneto, is created by the tumbling and jostling of solid and liquid metal inside of the core, and it is moving continuously because of the heat and the convection currents and this movement. This kinetic energy of particles that we call heat just ends up moving the whole thing. Now, when you have this big tumbling metal moving past other tumbling liquid metal, it can create a magnetic field. So if you wanted to restart a planet's magnetosphere, which again is a sphere of magnets, you would need something that could liquefy and set the core in motion. Now, I know some of you might say, like, oh, well, what about nukes or something like that? Well, if you look down at the planet there, keep in mind that the center of the planet is at tremendous pressure and is tremendously hot. To even get down, we can't even, theoretically, we can't even dig that far down into the Earth's crust because it'd be too hot and all known materials would melt by the time they got to the core. So in terms of restarting it, you need to restart the dynamo. In terms of, that's theoretical, but practically, I don't know. Watch how quickly I get back to Earth. I've been working on this part. Wow. Next, we have a 119 SEK from Heinrich Bjork, another Bjork in the chat. Cool. Who says, "Hello, I'm from Sweden, and all talk on social media about our tactic is pretty much false, since almost everything we do nothing just because we don't do a lockdown." Yes, so, I mean, there is some confusion about what different countries do to handle the pandemic, and again, like you're saying, Heinrich, there is a lot of misinformation saying, well, you know, Sweden isn't, shutting down their whole economy and doing all this. Well, Sweden is not the United States, and from an economic standpoint, that's true. From just a geographic standpoint, that's also true, but also from like a fabric of society part where I'm guessing people in Sweden are more okay with wearing a mask if the government tells them to than the heartland of America. And I think that just goes, again, leaning towards more conservative, per individual freedom kind of ideas, some of which I agree with. But, yeah, different strokes for different cheek swabs. Jay Howard with the 1999. Kyle, thanks for the science. Oh, what do you think is the most valuable skill to have when you're trying to communicate scientific information to a potentially unreceptive audience? We talked about this a little bit last week, but no one has figured out the optimal science communication method. There's always pitfalls and traps you can fall into. But what I have always tried to do is be passionate and understanding. So I never think anyone's dumb or they're not, they're stupid because they don't understand something or they think this way or that way. No, it's just because they haven't had the same experience or the same learning that you have. And if you can, then it would be up to you to try to get some of that information across if they're looking for it. If you try to force someone to learn something, it usually backfires. In fact, it's called the backfire effect. So what I try to do is make sure I'm listening. And whenever I've encountered people, and I used to be closer to this community on the other side of it, but whenever I've encountered people with legitimately false beliefs about something, if you're not listening to them and you're just waiting for your next turn to speak and spout facts at them, it's not going to work. Listen to them. Why do you think this way? How does it make you feel? Where did you get this information? And just have a conversation with them. And that's another one of the evils of social media right now, is that it has made it literally impossible to have honest conversations with people. Where it's what a state to be in, where I could, given all the good I've tried to do, all I want to do is educate people. All I would have to do is tweet a single word and my career would be over forever. Should it be that way? Probably not. Wolf's On with the 5 says, following your Last of Us video, have you considered looking into the hyper-mutated rabies virus from the game Dying Light? Okay, so I did see your comment asking me to look into Dying Light, but I have not played it. So the rabies virus is seems more of a realistic pathway towards a real zombie virus to me, because it's more 28 days later. It literally makes mammalian brains more aggressive, more likely to bite, and kind of mindless. So I think it's possible to have some kind of weird mutated version of that. But I don't know. I haven't played the game. Celebrial82 with the 25 says, thank you for being a voice of reason. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to make as much sense as I can, day by day. Day by day. Joshua Barbeau with the 25 says, hey, Kyle, love the show. Oh, you make the world a better place. Oh, yeah, prove it. What could I do to make you just consider having your first D&D game as a special sciencey guest star for an episode of my Twitch D&D show? Well, the 25 helps. I'll think about it. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. My Wizards of the Coast hobby of choice was Magic the Gathering, as you know, which we will get to. But I'd like to do it. With the $1984 donation, says, skip my name because I know it's hard to pronounce. Oh, you mean Zihuohe? Damn. Always like your show. What's your opinion that the Arizona church claims their device can kill 99% of the coronavirus? Well, you know my opinion. I'll put it this way. There are a lot of religious ideas that churches say that don't map onto reality so good. Okay, let's hold off on the super chats for just a second. I need to get to our second topic. Whatever it is, I forgot what it is. I think it's Millie Boys. Not Milli Vanilli. I wish it was. So, how do millipedes walk? This was a Reddit deep dive for me because I wanted to know this answer. And like I've said, or did I say when I was practicing this? Anyway, I've gone on record with no one saying that I love millipedes, but I do not like centipedes, especially the ones with the bent legs that look all hairy. No. I woke up one night in my lofted bed. It was right above my face on the ceiling, like this far away. Couldn't handle it. But millipedes I like because they look soft and kind of like soft in a hard way. But I was wondering how they moved, and I wanted to know how they move. Interestingly, millipedes do not have 1,000 legs, which you would suspect from the prefix milli. I think the most is like 400 to 700. Anyway, I saw this video, and I want you to see it too. Now, what you see when the person lets go the giant African millipede, I believe, is you see this beautiful standing wave in sections, like there's a pulsing sound wave or something. But you see this beautiful standing wave forming in their legs like that, and it's so coordinated and so absolutely gorgeous. I can't get over it. It's great. So how do they actually move? Well, we would be looking at the legs. And for this, of course, I'm not an expert, so I looked up some terms and stuff. But as you can see, there's a lot of different segments to a millipede, and they're all attached together. And at the center of each one of those segments, there is a pair of neural ganglia, like neurons, like proto-brain kind of stuff. And they contain a central pattern generator. Now, this is a way to basically make a thing happen more than once without thinking about it. It's live. So they have these CPGs. And these CPGs at the center of each segment make kind of give an automaticity to the movement of the legs. Now, how this is linked up in the body then? Well, each of the segments are connected to each other, of course. And then what evolution has done is take each of these ganglia, CPGs, and connect them across the cross-section of the Milli Vanilli. And this will allow the automation of the legs in sequence, right? So you can introduce a different phase. So you could say this, that, this, so they're never going at the same time. So you can get a walking motion. Then you connect those CPGs across body segments. And so then you can have this sequence then have a phase across the body, which creates these little standing waves here. And then what evolution did is connect all of those with long lines all the way down the body segments. And then you can get this full coordinated movement and motion that they're not thinking about. You know, it's hard to say if any insect really thinks if you look at, how many neurons they have or something like that. But it would be just too difficult to try to move 1,000 legs, or sorry, more accurately, a few hundred legs in sequence like that. I bet if we had 4 legs, we'd have a hard time figuring it out. So with hundreds and hundreds of legs, evolution has kind of pushed off the responsibility of making that happen to a more biologically automated system in these central pattern generators. And I think you can see that in the video if we watch it again. So you see little sections of the body that seem to be synced up with each other, like there's a waveform, right? So there's almost like an actual wave where the crests and the troughs appear at the same place in different sections. And when you sync that all together, that's a GIF right there, huh? Then you get this beautiful Milli Vanilli motion. I absolutely love it. That's all I had to say. I like millipedes. Go back to the chat toe. We have 20 from Forrest Perry, who says, clarify for me, please. All the research I'm doing suggests that more people are being affected worse by the measures being taken for COVID. Famine, suicide, reduced medical care, etc. How could this be fixed, do you think? Well, first of all, Forrest, I would disagree with the underlying claim. I have not seen widespread evidence or very strong evidence to say that the measures that we are taking is having a worse effect on human existence and civilization. In fact, I've seen exactly the opposite, where it looks like, and we went through this last week if you want to see it, it looks like last week in a study, it said we with our measures that we're taking now, we have avoided tens of millions of cases and hundreds of thousands of additional deaths. And I think because the economy is, I mean, it's bad right now, and 30 million Americans are out of work, but it's not to the point where I think it is worth 1 million human lives or something like that. So I'm not seeing the widespread famine, suicide, reduced medical care, and stuff like that. I have not actually seen that. If you want to point me towards the evidence, I'll take a look at it. Jesse with a 10 says, do you have a favorite species? They're such a cool creature. I'd love to keep them as pets. Species of Milli Vanilli? No, I do not. I do not know enough about them. I'd like one of the big ones because I'd want it to run across my face like a living mustache. But my favorite species might be the flamboyant cuttlefish. Oh, they're little. They're like the Elton Johns of the sea. They're great. Joe Doyle with the 55 says, hey, Kyle, love the show. And on topic of COVID-19, do you think any sports will return? NHL has a plan, but you think it's a wise idea? Keep up the good work, full Leafs. Sporting events is what COVID wants. People getting very physical with each other, breathing on each other, spitting on each other, blood, sweat, tears, all of that, mingling, mixing, and then outside of that, 50 to 100,000 people sitting in close proximity, screaming, shouting, burping because all the beer they shouldn't be having at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. Dad, I know it's a baseball game, but come on. It seems like sports are exactly what the virus wants. So the way forward for sports is very complicated. I really do not see a way it's going to be unharmful unless there is a vaccine or some treatment first. Mudpie with the 20. Woo! I'd like to see what your D&D character would be. I'm an impetuous boy prince. I mean, look at me. I'm very stuck up. What do you mean? What do you mean get in the sewer? It's dirty in there. Of course I can fire a bow. I was taught when I was 5. You ghoulish rogue. Mateus Marlin with the 100 MX, whatever that is. Earlier today was my college graduation, and I'm now... Let's get some love in the chat. Today was my college graduation. I'm now officially a computer science engineer. Just want to thank you for inspiring me to be better, for your videos, and for being a great person. Saludos de Mexico. That is... Mateus, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud that... It sounds very selfish of me, but, you know, that I could help you in any way possible to help you achieve what you're passionate about and what you want to be doing, that humbles me, brother. And I hope you have a wonderful career being computer and sciencey and nerdy. Happy graduation. That's fantastic. Travis Edrington. I was going to say Eddington. Travis Edrington says, with the 10, if you teleport from NYC to Denver, your lungs could pop from depressurization like a scuba diver climbing a few feet without breathing out. And your ears. Thoughts? Let's hold off on the supers for a second. We're going to get to our next topic. But I don't think the pressure difference from one, Denver's at 5,280, right? 1 mile? Going down to like sea level, let's say. The atmospheric pressure change isn't that much, is it? I don't think so. It's like 1 to 2 psi, right? I think... I don't know. You'd have to do the math. That'd be interesting. It's like, how far could you teleport geographically downwards before it popped your ears? I don't know. Obviously, your ears pop when you repressurize and depressurize in a plane, but I don't know So that's like I think airplane cabins are pressurized to like 8 or 9, and normal Atmo is 15. So does the elevation difference from Denver to New York City go by like 8 psi? I don't know. It's interesting though. I like the thought experiment. And before we go to the next, Adam Race with the 25, who says, "Hey Kyle, thanks for adapting well to the times and still pumping out great content. Wanted to ask anything that you personally take on faith." I see what you're trying to do. No, I wouldn't say I take anything on faith. I would say that I am more compliant with most for things that people are suspicious of if I know the science. And I say that, by which I mean, like, a lot of people are afraid of background scanners, backscatter X-ray scanners at the airport, for example. They think it's going to give them cancer or what have you, and there's privacy issues, and that is true. But because I know the science and how often I go to the airport and what the dosage rate is, I'm not afraid of them, and I kind of take that on faith. I kind of take the physics part of it on faith, knowing that I'm, like, I don't think twice about it. Like, I know what's going on. So, in terms of, like, faith, no. I need to see it. Or I need to know about it. I don't want to just hear about it. Especially if your wafers aren't that tasty. Okay, let's go to the third topic. Yeah, that may have been controversial. Ooh, I like my invisible mug here. I don't want to talk about this one. It's boring. I don't want to bore you. Hiya! Peer review time. So, our last episode on the facility was about The Last of Us. I'm currently playing the sequel, and we're not going to talk about it, and don't put stuff in the chat about it. We'll talk about it in a little while, but the last one was on The Last of Us. And we have Mowgli Hajik, who has an interesting correction, so to speak. Oh, this feels like a different show now. Anyway, a correction about clickers, and how I said that clickers may echolocate and use sound as a mechanism to find their prey. Aside, that kind of goes into the D&D thing. If you want to make a cool voice that sounds like a clicker, it's not breathing out. It's breathing in and closing off your throat a little bit. So it's not like this, like, ah! It's breathing in. Got more like close in. Anyway, Mowgli says, clickers with a single auditory opening wouldn't be able to tell if the sound is coming from the right or left. Now, I take issue with this because I suggested that they have a dish-like splayed open gross face because there's some evolutionary advantage akin to like a barn owl, which does have a face dish of feathers that helps direct sound. That being said, they're still mutated humans, and I didn't see anything where they didn't have ears anymore, right? So they wouldn't be able to tell if the sound was coming from left or right. Well, that's even if that were true, that's not true. By which I mean, with a single wide enough opening, I mean, you could think of some neuronal process where if, you know, a large tissue on the back of this dish, like a retina, you know, and you have more agitation through sound pressure of one side of that tissue or another based on how it reflects off the face dish. I mean, you could start to get some kind of idea. But I want to choose this for peer review because barn owls, again, my analogy for clickers, do something really cool. Well, they don't do it, but they evolved it. So we have ears at the same height. And because they are separated by our squish meat faces, you can use that separation to tell which direction something is coming from, whether it's left or right, as you say, Mowgli, because it will be, you know, louder in this ear or softer in this ear, vice versa. Barn owls have ears at different heights and separated. So now you're going to a different, you have different parameters, right? So now not only can you tell if something is louder here or here, you can now tell if something is louder up or down. And then with that, combined with the face dish and excellent eyesight and feathers that are literally silent in flight because of how the fluid flow goes around them. They've measured it. Barn owls are the best. They also sound like banshees. Look it up. We think that's where the banshee myth came from. If you integrate all this information, up, down, left, right, and then fantastic eyesight, and barn owl brains actually overlay this auditory information over visual parts of their brain so they can almost see the sound, you get a hyper-targeting mechanism for sound. And so if clickers had something like that, you send out a click. Too much? You send out a click, you get back that auditory data, and then with that kind of build, you could very quickly locate something. But for making me think, and all of us think about that, Mowgli, you are indeed. Oh wait, you are now an honorary member of the facility. Fantastic, Kevin, get him his plaque. What? I don't know. It's like 15 minutes at 400. Pizza rolls. Let's get back to the chat. Dorian Russell with another 20 says, Kyle, would you be willing to do an interview on a History of Middle-earth's channel on a podcast? Maybe talk about your old Lord of the Rings videos. Well, I'm, as much as I like Lord of the Rings, I think everyone kind of does, right? But I'm not the biggest nerd about Lord of the Rings by any means. The biggest way that I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd was playing that PS2 game that was incredibly frustrating for many hours, and then the Shadow of Mordor games, which I really, really enjoy. But in terms of, I've read all the books, but I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. Although I can do a screen accurate Gollum impression, 100% accurate. You think I'm joking? I'm not. It's 100%. The Random Bits channel says, do you plan on doing any live science debates with another YouTuber? I think that sounds fun. Sure, I'm down. I don't know what we would debate, though. Me and my friend Dan Casey used to do a show called Natural Selection where we debated really stupid stuff. Like, what's better, magnets or Magneto? Which is really dumb. Or Spider-Man or spiders. But it's hard. I would have like a free will debate with someone or something like that. I'm not the smartest philosopher. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not that smart. But yeah, I would. I love disagreeing with people, especially not on social media. Let's do it live. On a stage. Wherever. Oh, but then you'd all have to have masks. Pest Barn with the 100 SEK says, speaking of Sweden, a bottlenose dolphin was spotted yesterday off the coast around 70 miles north of Stockholm in the Baltic Sea. Is it yours? Wait. Okay. Here's what you do. You go out to the coast, and I want you to yell, "Hey, 3 flipper." If it responds, yes, it's mine. The designation 3 is the number of the clone number. Kay Collier says you could debate Darwin Award nominees. I don't think we'd have a whole lot to talk about. Hey, so you almost shot your testicles off, huh? Cool. You shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I know. So how's it hanging? Oh, sorry. Yeah, see, it doesn't sound fun. The Thomason says, hey, Kyle, glad to catch a live broadcast every Tuesday. And again, if you want to join the facility, you can talk to me pretty much every day. I'm pretty good about it on the Discord, as security team will tell you in the chat. You can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill. You can talk to me pretty much every day. You get behind the scenes looks. You get members only live streams. You get episodes a day early, behind the scenes stuff. And you get like almost 700 very, very friendly nerds to chat to. The Quasar, Theo Quasar says, how do you reconcile hard determinism, zero free will, with quantum mechanics saying that reality is probabilistic? Well, this is a common rebuttal of determinism, saying that, well, if at base reality, like the smallest fabric of the universe, quantum mechanics, if that's fundamentally unknowable and it's probabilistic, I'm just thinking how deep you want to get into this, but if it's essentially random, then how can determinism exist? How could you possibly know what's going to happen from one moment to another? I think the easy way out of that is that probabilistic quantum effects don't scale up. And at our level of squishy beings such as we don't see quantum mechanical effects. And so at the level of the brain, at the level of neurotransmission and what is actually making the decision, it's very unlikely to me that that is a completely random at the base of it process. Because when you scale up, there's emergent properties of randomness that can create less random stuff, like galaxies forming in space, for example. But even if that is 100% true, and quantum mechanics does influence your brain and free will, you still don't have free will, because now you're just essentially randomly moving through the world now. Instead of being an organism that makes decisions, of which you have no real conscious process through, now you're a being who didn't choose your parents, who didn't choose your brain, who didn't choose how you grew up, where or when, who didn't choose what socioeconomic status that you're in, who didn't choose any diseases, genetic disorders, didn't choose anything. And then you go all the way down to the brain. Not only do you not choose anything about yourself, you don't choose the reality that exists for you at all. There's no, in all of these arguments, there's no place to insert you as a causal agent. You can always go back further. You chose. Well, how did you choose that choice? And so on and so on. So I don't think quantum mechanics is the way out of this one. We have Ori Brosh with the 20 says, "Hi Kyle, lots of love from Israel." Mazel tov? Is that what you say? That could have been offensive. My bad. I've been watching you for 5 years now, and I've recently started working at my sciencey dream job. So much of it is credited to you and your love of science communication. Thank you so much. I only laughed because now I feel bad that I may have offended you by just saying the first thing that came to mind. You got your sciencey dream job after 5 years. Fantastic. Or let's get love in the chat for Ori. I'm like Mateus. I'm so proud of you. Especially highly technical jobs, going through a lot of education and schooling. It's damn hard work, and not everyone can do it. But you did, Ori. And if I could have any little space in that chain of how you accomplished this, fantastic. Let's go to our last. Matthew Edwards with $13.99 trying to get me to give up my argan oil. I'm trying to lock down a sponsor for that first, and then we'll do it. Doc A says with a 30, finally making it live. I have a nerdy discussion with my 15-year-old son Luca, the place where he played blitzball in Final Fantasy X. He says Black Panther is the richest Marvel hero. I say it can't be, since vibranium is not for the free market and thus can't be a trade. Well, there's different kinds of rich, right? I mean, Wakanda is obviously rich in technology and history and culture. That's one kind of rich. But if you wanted to accurately compare Black Panther to, say, a Tony Stark, then you'd have to establish a basis for what are the assets we're comparing and what would they actually be worth. So then for Black Panther, you would take all the vibranium that he has oversight of as king, and then you would try to evaluate it by realistic standards and then determine if that's more than a few billion that Tony Stark has. I suspect that it's more, considering that vibranium is the unobtainium of the Marvel Universe. Let's go to our last topic. Yeah, I did it. Kyle, smart boy. The creature type is boy, in case you wanted to run Morathon with just me. So another Magic the Gathering sciencey thing. What are you doing to us, Kyle? Deal with it. So I saw this on Reddit, and I read it on Reddit, and what it looks like is a computer science student who wanted to try to break the brain of Magic the Gathering Arena, and when you play against an opponent called Sparky. So they wanted to try, knowing that it's a computer and a system running Magic the Gathering with Magic the Gathering rules, they wanted to figure out if you could take advantage of those rules and try to present the game with a problem that's so hard it won't be able to actually compute it. And this is building on the Turing machine stuff, because in this small paper, which you are going to see here, I like the title, they are trying to, they acknowledge that Magic the Gathering is Turing complete, so they want to present something very, very confusing to the automated system, to the machines, to see if it can handle a certain board state that is NP hard. Now, what computer science calls NP hardness, I really like how the author of this post puts it. So if you can see right there, it says, a problem is said to be NP hard if no currently alive computer scientist can suggest any way to solve it other than brute force approaches. So to take an approach that would take so much time that you wouldn't know if it ever stopped. It's kind of like the halting problem, in that you can give a computer a question that you don't know if it's ever going to find the answer or not. So it seems like, and again, I'm not a computer scientist, but maybe Mateus can help us out with this one. Recent computer science engineer, mind you. But so what they're trying to do is give Magic the Gathering Arena a problem so hard that it could only really be solved with a brute force approach, and then the computer won't have time to do it. And then what does the computer do after that? So I don't know all the actual specific, I mean, you can see all the set, subset, perfect layering kind of stuff that they're talking about. It's very complicated, but it comes down more or less. Oh, I covered it. It comes down more or less in this specific board state to trying to make Magic the Gathering Arena do something that there's no quick answer to, that it would take longer than you know to figure out. And what they do is establish a board state where the computer does not have an optimal solution to declare blockers. So if you're not familiar with Magic the Gathering, one core tenet of it is that you can put a creature on the field, and you can swing that creature at someone else, tap it, and they can block it, and they die or not depending on their powers and toughnesses. So what this paper was presenting to Magic the Gathering Arena was basically, it was something that is NP hard. It's not solvable in polynomial time. So to put that together, they started with cards like this, where, creatures you control have menace, and each creature you control with menace can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Now, you can imagine, since there's so many rules in Magic the Gathering, you can start to get to such a restrictive state where, okay, well, I have, all creatures must block this creature if able. Breaker of Armies. Okay, well, I have to block this creature, but I can't block this creature because it has menace, except it has menace +1 now, which means that if I block it with 3, but I can't block it with 3 because still all creatures need to block this one. And so what is the level of restriction ordering, and how do I figure this out? So they wrote this paper, and they gave this to the wider internet, and I don't think this is the same person. But this is what happens when you present a very specific board state that's custom, more or less, to the computer. And I'll say this is they wanted to figure out if standard legal cards could do this computer science thing and break the computer's brain. So they're only using standard legal cards, and when you play, it looks like this. Wow, something weird happened there.
She conceded.
So what you're seeing is the computer is going back and forth trying to decide what blocks. I've fast forwarded this. This has been going for about 2 minutes.
She conceded.
The computer has been trying to declare blockers for about 2 minutes. And at the end of the day, what happens is the computer just literally concedes.
She conceded.
And then weird stuff happens on the screen. So they broke Sparky's brain. They broke Magic the Gathering Arena's brain by presenting it with a specifically tailored computer science question. They were able to make a computer concede. Nope, can't do it. Takes too long. I think that's absolutely incredible. And just goes to show you why I love this game so much, is that it's so incredibly complex. You can do stuff with a few sheets of cardboard that you would think
she conceded.
Just wasn't possible. Oh, this is way too loud, isn't it? Sorry. Back to chat. If that was super, super loud, I apologize. We have Joshua Barbeau again, who says it's pronounced Barbo. Thanks again, Kyle. If the $25 super chats will help, I can keep them coming. Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, you could come on the show. Yeah, you can't just buy me, okay? My time is valuable, or so my agents tell me. Yeah. Yeah, the game just straight up freaks out. Oh, it was loud. That's my bad. Wangtorio Jackson, frequent commenter, says, on the subject of Magic the Gathering, this will be quick, don't worry, sciencey peeps. What do you think of the overhauling of the companion mechanic as well as all the card bannings in the recent set? Is it getting sloppy? I think it was. I think companion was really sloppy. I think it was their way of trying to make standard more like commander, because commander is the most popular and profitable format, and it didn't work out. It ended up breaking a lot of formats, and they had to nerf it, so it's not even good. And I built no commander decks around a companion mechanic, so I don't think it really worked. Grin Reaper of Trolls says, since viruses edit your DNA to reproduce with the 19, thank you, would you be able to use CRISPR-Cas9 to change a virus such that it edits out your own DNA from your cells? In other words, could you use the virus to destroy the virus? I use the stones to destroy the stones. Yes. You're actually getting at exactly what we do, or one of the ways that CRISPR, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, one of the ways it is introduced in the body or to patients or to whatever is using a virus as a vector. So you put the enzymes and the necessary genetic information into a virus, essentially, like a virus that you essentially hollow out and kill. But since viruses are so good at invading cells, you use their natural properties to your advantage, and you just, you take out their viral DNA, don't give us that, and put in CRISPR stuff, and the viruses deliver the CRISPR stuff. So you're exactly right. And you didn't even know you were exactly right. Love it. Oh, am I talking about bacteriophages? There's a virus vector, isn't there? I could be wrong. I should be open to new information. Martin, with 10 HRK, says 1 ton of bricks is heavier than 1 ton of feeders. I don't know what that means. I don't get it. Callan Olar says, hey Kyle, could humans use heat from the core of the Earth as a substitute for the sun if anything were to happen? Well, that's one of the plot points in the Matrix sequels, correct? Where Zion needs to be very close to the planet's core so that the ambient heat is still enough to keep humanity alive. Sorry. I think the problem being actually doing the excavation. Like I said a couple minutes ago, I mean, we can't even dig that far down to get at, we could dig pretty far down, a few kilometers in this super deep borehole, I believe, somewhere in Russia. But to move that much earth to make it so you could get people down there, millions of people down there, and then structurally reinforce this, where you have incredible pressures from all sides pushing, the dirt pushing, and all the rocks and all the moving geology down there, I think it would be a titanic engineering feat that I don't think is probably possible. Tim Beleno says, +1, you're now an elk with no abilities. You can't Oko me, baby. Firecloud with a very, very complicated question that I won't be able to answer. Hey, Kyle, what's your opinion on how consciousness works? Would you speculate that it's just a phenomenon that occurs if a system is very complex, or is there more to it? If I could answer that question accurately, Firecloud, I would win a Nobel Prize. We're talking about one of the great unanswered questions across all of science. What is consciousness really, and how does it work? Does it just emerge? Could you just put, a few billion neurons together in the right orientation, and then it just springs to life? Or is there more to it than that? Or does it need to begin simpler? We don't know. We don't know. Music Central Piano 29 with the 10 who says, keep up the great work. I can't not. I can't. I have to. I'm just trying to get through some video games right now so I don't get spoiled. Hey Kyle, what would happen if you sunk a giant open-ended cylinder into the ocean floor and then pumped the water out? We need a hell of a pump. Water's very, very heavy. I I would have to understand the dimensions of your question a little bit better. How long would it take? How hard would it be? I don't know. We do like heavy duty pumping for nuclear power plants and stuff, where we siphon off a lot of water from lakes or rivers, and we use a lot of that and we discharge that back. But I don't know. Sounds like a weird supervillainy thing to say. Guy. Ad Austin says, "Hey Kyle, are you aware some people lack an inner voice?" No, I was not, and now I am. Although I don't seem as surprised. That's incredible and super weird, and those kind of neurological quirks and differences among people really fascinate me. But I'm not surprised, because I know a few people, actually within the same like friend group, I know a few people who have no inner sight. Who, if I asked you to close your eyes and picture yourself picking up an apple, what they see, what they tell you they see, is literally gray. It's nothing. When they read a book, they don't see characters, they don't see people doing things, they see gray and maybe some text. Think about that. Wild, right? They tell me it sometimes it hampers even memory formation, where they try to think back on something they did or they wanted to remember, and they can't really, because it's not there. It starts with a P, and the name is... You'll put it in the chat. But it is really weird. John Doe says, "Hey Kyle, are you aware that your mods are..." Oh, never mind. When there's hundreds of people chatting and some of it is in different languages, we can't automatically translate everything that you're saying, and so it's hard to give everyone the benefit of the doubt all the time, because sometimes you get burned. Shaggy Spade says, "Right now, if enough of us say that ethically we should create a simulated afterlife, which I believe is a new show on Amazon, for simulated copies of ourselves, then due to simulation theory, it increases our chances of having an afterlife." I suppose so. If sometime in the future humans... Yeah, I mean, I guess it fits in a little bit with simulation theory. However, it completely breaks down with the reasoning of having an afterlife in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Where the simulation idea to have an afterlife doesn't track with our ideas of why an afterlife might or may not exist. So I don't know if that's workable. Because the existence of a digital afterlife would give zero credence to ideas that say that there's an afterlife for no reason. Why? I don't know. Some book said. Also potentially offensive. I apologize. Hybum with the 20 says, "Hey Kyle, love your channel. Thank you. I'm actually pretty proud with how it's going on so far. What resources are there to make a novel scientifically..." Okay, so we're gonna end here. We're about at the end of the show here, but you can stop your soupies. So Hybum says, "What resources are there to make a novel scientifically accurate? I'm trying to design a world with a moon whose atmosphere overlaps and accurately represent the effects of that." So I will say I had a nerd renaissance with a single website. So around the time when I published the video, Death by Lightsaber is so much worse than you thought, I randomly stumbled across a website that has literally the nerdiest discussions of space and space weapons, space combat, living on different planets, everything rocket punk that you could ever dream of, everything expansive, everything Babylon 5e, everything Star Trek-y. It has thousands and thousands of pages, seemingly. Almost endless content that is hard sci-fi, or as OGMB Matterbeam would say, tough science fiction, tough SF. That's actually how I met Matterbeam, was going into that community and asking them, like, who could help me, like, model the heat coming off a lightsaber kind of thing. So this is, the landing page is kind of obscure. So what I'll say is, if you type in atomic rockets, into Google, you should see a page that's like atomic rockets, like engine list and stuff like that. But Atomic Rockets is the nerdiest website I've ever seen in my entire life. And it really changed how I thought about thinking about science fiction and just applying a really, really like scrupulous eye to every single little detail. I mean, the people on here are, enthusiasts and nerds, yes, but like engineers and PhDs and, genius level 16-year-olds. Like, they're very, very intelligent people who they use. This site is a resource for people who are looking to make their fiction more accurate. And to kind of give this a stamp of approval, if someone wants to find the link and put it in the chat, I can also find it. But I'm worried it's going to do something to the facility. I'll put it in slightly after I finish here. But to give it a stamp of approval, if you think I'm exaggerating here, you probably know, if you're watching my show, you probably have played Mass Effect 2. And you're probably familiar with the fun little speech where Isaac Newton is the deadliest SOB in space speech, where they're talking about kinetic energy and lack of drag and how weapons work in space. And it's a very famous quote within the game. The guy, if you highlight the NPC and look at the NPC's name, it shows their name. You're like, oh, okay. The name of that person is actually the person who started this website, because the BioWare people read that website in researching Mass Effect. So if that doesn't give you a seal of approval to find it, I think you absolutely should. So what did we do today? Oh wow, we had a great lot of dope supers, a lot of graduating kids who are fulfilling their sciencey dreams. It makes my void of a heart beat yet slightly. We talked about Magic the Gathering, how to break a computer's brain just using interactions of cards, which I find hilarious. We went through peer review about how clickers might work in relation to barn owl physiology. We also talked about vanilli, and how their legs move, having interconnected neurons and ganglia that are set into and out of phase to make hundreds of legs and moving them a lot easier to handle. And of course, we talked about how social media is also making COVID-19 worse by rapidly spreading misinformation and giving people the wrong ideas about critical ways to come out of the other side of this thing. I had a good week. No, I didn't. Yesterday was terrible. But I hope to have a good week going forward, and I hope y'all have a good week going forward. I just looked at the first cut of the next episode on the facility. It is a good one. If you want to see it a day early, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and sign up at any level. Starting at the $2 level, which is the base level, you will get episodes a day earlier. But if you go further than that, you get your name on ARIA, you get private streams, you get the private Discord, you get to meet all of my professors, you get to level up with a Discord bot, which is fun. But you also get to participate in our game nights, movie nights, trivia nights, radio, D&D games. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to do that, please consider checking it out. It all goes towards all the sciencey, education-y stuff we're trying to do. I hope that y'all have a wonderful week. Be on the lookout for the next episode. And until then, please, especially on social media, be nice to each other, because this is all we got.